Hey everybody, this is Brandy Horn again, back with another couple videos. For these videos, we are going to focus on using library databases to find information. So back in the course guide, starting from the home page, if we look at the tabs across the top above the image, we can click on the Find Articles tab. And there we will see a selection of databases where you can find articles, both journal kind of peer-reviewed articles, but also things like newspaper articles. This video is going to focus on newspaper articles. And for those databases, we're going to look at Nexus Uni, New York Times Historical, New York Times Current, and also America's historical newspapers. And we're going to talk about the different kinds of things that you can find in each of those databases. But you can search any of these. I'm choosing these to give you a sampling of different interfaces, basically. So we're going to start with Nexus Uni. And this database has things like case law and company information and all that kind of stuff. But we are going to focus just on news. The default is news. We can see that you can select the type of information here, and then we can type in our search terms here. I'm going to stick with my sample topic, so I'm going to go with St. Bernadette of Lourdes, and I'm going to search that. And when we get to our results page, notice that we have tons and tons of results, right? We're also going to find that there will be some repeats, like different publications will run basically the same article. So just keep that in mind, that a lot of that could be that. And as you scroll through, you may find articles that are not in English. You could technically still use those, because what you can do at the top of the screen is you have the option to select what language you want all of the articles to appear in. I did have an article here that was in French when I first did this search. But I had set it to English at the top, and I didn't realize that it set all of the articles in the results list to English. So this was in French originally. This is a French publication, but once I set it to English, then it set everything to English, so I couldn't show you the transition, but just trust me that this was in French, and now it's in English. So if you come across something that's not in English, you can always select that at the top. Okay. Now, we have a ton of stuff here. You can kind of browse around for a bit and see what's there. You can also, on this side over here, search within results, include or exclude terms. So you might include something like maybe incorruptible. And that takes us down, I mean, it's still a lot of articles, but it takes us down to just under 2,000, right? And you can scroll around and see what kinds of things are going on. And I am seeing like indications of a fairly recent situation with an incorruptible. So, you know, I can click and see what that's about. And that might be something I include in my discussion. I'm not sure. This person, Carlo, died at the age of 15 and has since been declared the venerable and patron of the internet by the Catholic Church. So there is someone who is more recently found to his body is incorruptible. He was dug up 10 years later and his body apparently is preserved. So here's a more recent example of the type of phenomenon that St. Bernadette is. So that's interesting information. So from here, maybe I'm interested in also adding sainthood and see what comes up. And I can go through, and I've got 30 articles, and I can go through 30 articles and see what I have. And if I decide I don't want to do sainthood, I can take that off. Maybe I do miracle, right? So again, your narrow by appears here on the left, and you can remove it, or you can edit your search term if you need to, okay? But you go through, and if there's anything that you are particularly interested in, right, you can click on it. And you have the text here. Your search terms will be highlighted within the text. And then if you decide that you want this to you know, look back at it later, you can always email it to yourself, right? Put your email address here, include the full document, PDF, all that kind of stuff, and then submit, so that you will have it more permanently, okay? And this is fairly simple to do. And you go through until you've kind of exhausted your search terms, and then you move on to the next database, which we are going to do now. So that's Nexus Uni, or Nexus Uni, excuse me. So we're going to close this one for now. We are going to look at the New York Times Historical. All right. Again, we have a single search box. We can always go to advanced search if we want to combine terms. I always recommend going to advanced search, especially if you have multiple search terms that you can put together. I'm going to start, though, with St. Bernadette of Lourdes, and I'm going to search. And I go through, and I have 119 results, and I'm looking to see what I have. But immediately what catches my eye is Pope Canonizes Girl. The publication date is 1933, because this is New York Times Historical. And we have an article from 1933, like the same time period when St. Bernadette is canonized. So that's pretty cool, right? I know you can probably look up this information through Wikipedia, but here's basically the source material. Here's your primary source saying this is, announcing it happened when it happened. So that's pretty exciting, right? It says on December 8th, they canonized her, and this was published December 9th. So if you come through and you decide you want this, at the top here, you can always email it to yourself, right? Put your email address, your name, whatever else, and send it to yourself. Also, I will point out the cite button. Anytime you see a cite button, that's very much going to be buyer beware. We're going to select MLA 8th. And then if you decide to use this, first of all, I would point out that never you're going to have all caps for anything. So that's problematic. You're going to have to fix that. There's always going to be some sort of error. So refer to your Easy Writer or refer to the library citation resources to help you kind of figure out where the problems are so that you can fix them. But know that it is there in case that's helpful to you. But things to pay attention to. If you decide you want this, that's great. Send it to yourself because this is, like I said, primary source material basically. But also pay attention to their related items and see if there's anything over here that's potentially helpful to you. Let's say I'm interested in this first thing. Wonderworking at Lourdes. John Oxenham attempts to explain what it is and what it means. So basically, if we look at this more closely, we have a review by. So this is a review of sorts. We can see, we can make this page bigger down here in the bottom right. We can see that this is a book review, okay? Book reviews in and of themselves are generally not particularly helpful. New York Times does better book reviews than most places. So read through it, see if there is anything there that's useful. But we can always look up the book itself or the author. So the person who wrote the review is P.W. Wilson, but the person who wrote the novel is John Oxenham, or not the novel, but the book, Wonderworking at Lourdes. So we can Google that, and we see, like, we've got the review here that pops up. We can see that it's in Amazon, right? If we look up the author's name, right, John Oxenham, we see that he was born William Arthur Dunkerley. But the other important information here is his death, which was 1941. The reason I point this out is that copyright is 70 years past death, right? So copyright for his work would have ended by now, right? So 60, right? Like 2011. So the full text of this book should be available online because it's no longer covered by copyright. And so if we Google Wonderworking at Lourdes full text, we see archive.org, the Wonder of Lourdes and what it was, blah, blah, blah. So we can click on it and we get the full text of this book. Now, the cool thing that you can do here is where it says search within right here. You can type in Bernadette's name. And it will pop up all the instances where that name appears in the text. And it will highlight on the pages. Now, if it does weird flippy things, because it was doing that with me earlier, you can always follow this bar down here and then click on, and then I think once you get into the bigger parts, it flips better, right? So each instance where her name appears, you can go through and explore and see if it talks about her in a way that's useful to you, okay? So while the book review itself may not be particularly useful, it is telling you that this book exists, and we were able to find the full text of the book online. So you might find more information there that you can use, okay? And again, you can always look at related items and see what other things are out there, and you can try different search terms and see what's going on. So that was New York Times Historical, okay? New York Times Current. When we get into this database, we can see that we can search within publications specifically, or we can search within the database. I'm going to go with the database to show you St. Bernadette of Lourdes. It takes us, it shows us academic journals, magazines. You could look at magazines, also newspapers here. And if you look at publication title, you'll see that there are lots of different newspapers. So you don't have to limit to New York Times Current in this database. You can search lots of different newspapers. But you can also do, as I'm looking through the results here, it doesn't look like there's a lot here that's directly relevant. And so what I can do is I can click search within on the right. Because remember, I have some other words in my arsenal. I can use subirus and type that in, and I'll see that there are things more directly related to her. Now, one of the things I'm looking at is Miraculous in Itself, and this is talking about a musical that's based on, or that's about St. Bernadette. And that might be some information that you include in your article about her, is that there's a musical based on her life. And so this could be potentially a useful source to you in that regard. Okay, and again, you can email yourself up here and send it directly to your email. You can go through the rest of the results, try other search terms, see what other things that you've got. I don't have much time left before my timer runs out on this, so I'm going to show you one more thing very quickly. The America's Historical Newspapers. So just very quickly, we see we have a center or single search box. I'm going to click Advanced Search. If you want to combine search terms, that's the way that you're going to do that. I'm going to start with St. Bernadette of Lourdes. And I'm going to search. And I'm not getting anything. This is a database of historical newspapers. So remember, she was canonized in 1933. So maybe we do Bernadette Subirus, which is what she was known, her actual name, what she was known as before she was canonized, and go. And we see that we do have an article here from 1879, and this is the announcement of her death. So again, a sort of primary source, an article from the time period, giving her death date. And so that could be something that you use to document that. And up here on the right-hand side, you can email. And now I'm out of